All right, it's the moment of truth. Let's see if these things can play. Hey, what's up? Zach here. And yes, this is that secret custom Adidas tennis shoe model made only for their top touring players. Now, if you're wondering how I got my hands on these, well, technically I didn't get them. I just made them. Because like a lot of other custom pro shoe models, they're just made from different shoe parts that a particular athlete likes the best. And as a foot doctor, this concept just fascinates me to no end, because there's no shortage of these secret pro shoe models floating around out there. Famously, James Harden plays in a different outsole tread than even his signature shoe. Rafa Nadal plays in a combination of old Nike tennis shoe models versus the current one he's promoting. And there's a bunch of other examples of these floating around out there if you know where to look. But before I test these out, let's turn the clock back a little bit to see how I was able to construct these secret pro shoes from just ordinary shoe parts. All right, so here are the two shoes that this mystery pro shoe is made from: the Adidas Solecourt Boost and the Adidas Courtjam Bounces, both readily available for purchase. The problem is we have to get the uppers of this one onto the midsole and outsole of this one. So to get started, let's go turn on my oven. Remember, performance sneakers like basketball, tennis, and running shoes aren't sewn together, they're glued. And to get that pretty permanent glue off, first we have to heat them up for about 10 minutes. Since the trickiest part will be getting the Boost uppers off, we'll start with them. And now that that glue is softened enough, I can start to tease the uppers off with this blade. The same blade, coincidentally, that's used to dissect people's toes. I found this one just works best on delicate fabrics. These uppers are a lot tougher to get off than a standard sole swap with leather uppers because of this fabric wrap. So I have to use a decent amount of acetone you see I'm injecting into there to dissolve that glue and really take my time separating the upper from the midsole so it stays completely intact, because this upper still has to function as a high-performance shoe. Now, the reason is where performance sneakers like tennis, running, and basketball shoes derive all their stability and resistance to violent force from is that every part of the shoe is integrated, and that makes separating them orders of magnitude harder than a leather casual sneaker. You can also see these do have some stains building up. I did play in them a few times, including on clay, which I'm now regretting just to get the uppers more pliable, but we'll also get to do some cleaning once we pry these off. Here's where it gets really difficult, around where the seams meet the rubber. If you aren't careful, you will just rip that seam right off. Getting these uppers off that rubber DuraGuard is almost impossible to do clean, so since I only care about the uppers, I'm going to err on the side of the outsole, and as needed, I'll clean it up off the uppers later. All right, well, that took about 2.5, 3 hours, but now the donor uppers are off. Let's get our midsole and outsole donors. You can see right there where the acetone mixed with the clay. Sometimes that stain doesn't come off. Doesn't matter because no one will ever see it. But now the donor uppers are off. Let's get our midsole and outsole donor. And once again, heating them back up one at a time. The Courtjam Bounce uppers, I'm learning, are really friable with that mesh and other material in the forefoot, much less resistant to prying, which also translate on court where these aren't nearly as strong as the Solecourt Boosts, probably why the pros prefer the Boost upper. But really, good thing all I care about is the midsole, so I'll err on the side of the uppers when dissecting these. Okay, so what you didn't see is that whereas in a factory, these pieces are all constructed separate in just a matter of minutes using a factory line and machining process, this took me a whole 2 days just to get these 4 pieces off. But I am really excited. I have 4 intact, relatively undamaged pieces here to work with. Now it's just time to clean the Boost, get all the excess glue and material off the Courtjam midsoles, and prep them for gluing. Hey, just a reminder, if there's a custom shoe you'd like to see made, let me know in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next custom sneaker build. If you've been watching this channel, you can probably guess what it is. All right, so it's day 3 of this project. I gave the Boosts a whole day to dry after cleaning the uppers, but I am so pumped about how this turned out. They maintained their shape really well. They didn't shrink overnight after stuffing all those socks in there. And most importantly, all the clay stains and the acetone residue and everything are gone. They look like a brand new pair of uppers. Now, even though the most technical part of this procedure is done, the most important part we still have to do, and that is gluing these down accurately enough and durably enough that they can actually withstand me playing on them on court to actually do a real play test and review. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm just getting this excess rubbish off the midsoles and also just roughing them up for the glue. It just takes better if it's a rough surface. And finally, going back and removing that outsole rubber off the Boost uppers with just a few small knives and the Dremel. Now here I'm just taping the uppers just for a cleaner look. I don't want glue running everywhere. Time for gluing. You gotta make sure you're either wearing gloves or your hands go nowhere near the surface to avoid oils from your skin interfering with the bonding. And never, ever, ever do this with super glue. It'll just crack. Now that glue's evenly spread, I'm just gonna wait for it to cure. Now to activate the glue, remember I let it cure. Now I have to use a blow dryer and get these reheated to around 110 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And for this shoe, since I'm most worried about the forefoot sitting properly, I'm gonna start there and just reheat as I move backwards toward the heel, bonding both sides and the bottom. And now it's time for the moment of truth. Will these seat down and match up perfectly the way I want them? And finally, slowly seating that heel counter in. You know, my biggest motivation for this project is when I'm watching basketball or tennis and I see a player whose movement I really like and I want to see what shoes they're using. And then I realize not only are they not playing with the shoe that they're promoting, but they're wearing a shoe that isn't even for sale. You know, then you look down at your shoes and you think, why did I just buy these if the person paid to wear them doesn't even want them? But anyway, just a journey down the rabbit hole in my thought process. It looks like these heel counters are really seating in perfect. Same process as before, putting socks where I want to keep pressure, especially where the uppers meet the rubber and the toe cap. Because that's a flat surface now, I really want to keep constant pressure on that area. I just have a few areas of inconsistency where the rubber and the forefoot came off, but I'm not going to get too upset over it. Overall, these are looking great. I'm going to stress the bond here, and already it's feeling solid, but I'm going to give them a night to sit, and then it's time to lace them up and put them through a performance review. Let's see if these things stay intact and if they really can play. All right, I'll admit I was terrified to look at these shoes this morning in fear that they had fallen apart, but they are super solid and more importantly, actually look like a real shoe. I cannot believe how cool these look. All right, day 4 of this project and these are finally complete, but the biggest test of all, let's see how they play on the courts. All right, it's the moment of truth. Let's see if these things can play. All right, I can tell why Muguruza and Thiem want to play with these over the stock models. They're awesome. You know, playing in these shoes, it's almost like playing in a hovercraft. Your foot kind of feels like it's just skimming along the surface of the tennis court. I can really see why someone like Thiem would want these shoes. Because he's such a quick mover, these shoes really allow a lot of efficient, quick movement, but with the security and the Solecourt Boost uppers, knowing you're not gonna roll. But I think by far what the most impressive thing about these shoes is their weight. They're so much lighter than the Solecourt Boost while maintaining the same rugged stability, lateral stability, and protection of the Solecourt Boost. If you just look at the serve test, look, 30 centimeters of serve height, which just blows the Solecourt Boost away. So you're still getting a bunch of pop on these shoes, and you're getting the more maximalist protection of them. And where that combination of light and rugged durability comes into play, mostly was in the suicide test, in only 14.74 seconds. You know, I was coming in at a pretty fast clip for a shoe that I would consider pretty maximalist. Just, once again, awesome. I gotta say, if this shoe were for sale right now, it would be #1 on my top 5 shoes list. There is no question about it, which makes me beg the question even more. Why is Adidas not selling this shoe? If these shoes play this well and they're just homemade in my basement, how well do you think the regular Adidas manufactured ones of these would be? You know, if I had to describe this custom mold in one word, it would be edgy. And not like edgy like an early 2000s punk rock band that hates their father's edgy, but in that you're kind of floating around the court, really light movement, and then all of a sudden when you need to engage, this thing engages like a tiger claw into the court, and it allows you to push and then go the other direction really quick. You're getting like the best is something like the Nike Vapor Pro or the Adidas Ubersonic 4 with that quick, really like tiger-like movement on the court, but then you're getting the protection of those super maximalist shoes like the Blue Shield 5s, the Solecourt Boost. This shoe just really combines all these different facets of the best parts of other shoes into one package. Why aren't they selling this shoe? Now, over 2 days and over 3.5 hours of playing, these shoes are still holding up great. They are still playing fantastic. So I would rate this project as a resounding success. And I actually had half a mind to cut these shoes open at the end so you can kind of see the cross section of it. However, with how much work it took to make these and just how well they play, I think I'm gonna keep these ones intact. Now, if you wanna see why Dominic, Thiem, and Garbiñe Muguruza have chosen this custom mold, and just if you wanna see more about the differences between Boost and Bounce midsole foam, make sure you click into the playlist up above and subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next video.